Okay, let's unpack this. Picture the scene. A city just holding its breath, decades of waiting, the dream of reaching the top division of Spanish soccer, La Liga, hanging by a thread.
Yeah.
It all comes down to one single night, a playoff semifinal second leg where absolutely everything is on the line.
Hmm.
The date is June 12th, 2025, and the stage is the legendary Carlos Tartiere Stadium, absolutely buzzing.
Electric, you'd imagine.
This deep dive is focused squarely on that exact match. It was the dramatic second leg of the Segunda Division promotion playoff semifinal between Real Oviedo and Almería.
That's right.
We've taken a whole stack of sources from detailed match reviews and player statistics to coach comments and crucial background context for both clubs, and we're going to pull out the absolute most important insights for you.
Exactly. Our goal here is to go beyond just, reporting the score. We want to extract the essential nuggets from all this material to understand what really shaped the outcome of this pivotal game. The key moments that turned the tide, the tactical gambles that paid off or maybe didn't, the individual player performances that made the difference,
Yeah.
and those underlying factors that were kind of simmering beneath the surface all season.
Think of this as your shortcut to being truly well-informed about a really high-stakes soccer showdown without having to wade through all the data yourself.
What can you learn from this intense battle for promotion? That's the question.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in and set the scene, because the context is just everything here.
It truly is. The setting alone tells a big part of the story. We're talking about the Carlos Tartiere Stadium, home ground of Real Oviedo.
Oh,
Our sources note it holds about 30,500 fans.
wow.
So for a match like this, a promotion playoff semifinal, La Liga within touching distance after a really, really long time away,
Yeah.
you can just picture the scene. The atmosphere would have been beyond electric, just a cauldron of noise, hope, and frankly, sheer anxiety for everyone connected with the home side.
And the specific situation on the field going into the second leg was, well, designed for maximum drama. Oviedo held a crucial advantage from the first leg,
They did. They'd won 2-1 away from home in Almería.
which is huge in a two-legged tie.
Massive.
Yeah.
It meant that for the second leg, playing back at the Carlos Tartiere, Almería had to win. They had to overturn that 2-1 aggregate deficit to keep their promotion dreams alive.
No other way.
No. They couldn't just draw or even lose by one goal if they scored. They needed a victory by at least one clear goal just to force extra time or more to win outright in regulation.
Right.
Oviedo, on the other hand, holding that 2-1 lead, well, they could afford a draw on the night to advance to the final.
That immediately tells you a lot about the expected tactical approaches, doesn't it? And the whole psychological landscape.
Oh, it dictates everything. Oviedo had the comfort of their home crowd plus that aggregate lead. That gave them a significant psychological edge. It also allowed them the flexibility to potentially adopt a more, let's say, conservative, disciplined strategy. Maybe absorb pressure, defend their lead, look for chances on the break, or from set pieces.
Makes sense.
Almería, conversely, was under immense pressure. They had to attack, push forward, try and reverse that scoreline away from home against a team with momentum.
Yeah.
And our sources point out that this kind of high-stakes pressure, especially needing an away win, can sometimes lead teams to, well, deviate from their usual tactical plans.
Taking more risks, perhaps.
Maybe taking more risks than they normally would, sort of out of sheer desperation. You see that sometimes.
And looking at how both teams actually arrived at this point in the season adds another layer to the whole story. Oviedo had a remarkable trajectory.
They did. They finished the regular season really strong, landing in third place with 75 points.
And that third-place finish was crucial.
Absolutely. Because it secured them this home advantage in the playoff semifinal, playing the second leg in front of their own fans.
Big advantage.
Huge. And this is actually their second consecutive year reaching this playoff final stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which suggests, a building consistency, a competitive core within the squad and the club structure.
And the sources specifically highlight their transformation under coach Veljko Paunovic.
Yes, the narrative around Oviedo's season, according to our material, is definitely one of a significant turnaround.
How so?
They reportedly went from potentially missing the playoffs altogether earlier in the season to building serious momentum. They put together a strong, unbeaten run leading right into the playoffs.
An unbeaten run. How long?
The source mentions 12 games without a loss, which is, pretty impressive in a competitive league like the Segunda.
Wow, 12 games. That builds confidence.
Tremendous confidence. And psychological advantage heading into knockout games where momentum is just everything.
So you've got a team peaking at exactly the right time, with home advantage and a first leg lead already in the bag. What about Almeria's journey to this point?
Almería finished the regular season in 6th place with 69 points. Their explicit goal for this season, stated clearly right from the outset, was promotion to La Liga. Simple as that.
Okay.
But their season trajectory, as described by the sources, was quite different from Oviedo's upward curve. They actually led the league table earlier in the season.
They were in first place, so they were in the automatic promotion spots.
Exactly. At one point, they looked like really strong contenders for automatic promotion, maybe even challenging for the title.
What happened?
Well, according to our sources, a really poor run of away form in the second half of the season proved to be their undoing in that race for automatic promotion.
Ah, away form, the Achilles heel for so many teams.
It really was for them. That inconsistency, particularly on the road, caused them to drop down the table, miss out on those crucial top 2 spots, and ultimately land them here in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And our sources are quite direct here. They explicitly link the outcome of this specific match, the 1-1 draw in the night, and their subsequent elimination directly to that season-long struggle with poor away performance.
Wow.
It's a recurring theme that just came back to haunt them in the most crucial away game of their entire season.
So their season-long weakness essentially cost them their promotion dream in this one match. That adds such a heavy layer of narrative to it.
It really does.
You have Oviedo with the home crowd, the lead, the momentum peaking at the right time, versus Almería, desperate for an away win, struggling with away form all season, and facing just immense pressure.
It's a perfect high-pressure setup for drama and potentially some tactical upheaval.
Which brings us right into the first half, because the sources detail some pretty bold tactical moves from Almeria's coach, Rubi, trying to force that reversal.
He certainly didn't shy away from making changes, that's for sure. For such a high-stakes second leg, Rubi made a surprising 5 changes to his starting lineup.
5 changes. For the decider, that's a lot.
It is. The sources explain the stated aim behind these changes. He wanted to significantly alter tactics and try to find a breakthrough away from home. Plus, crucially, he needed to compensate for the absences of 2 absolutely key players.
Luis Suarez and Mark Pupil, right?
That's them.
And those 2 were out due to national team call-ups, which, as you mentioned, became a point of contention later on.
Yes, precisely. And their absence significantly complicated Rubi's planning. So he shuffled the deck quite dramatically.
What did he do specifically?
He tried Kaiki at right back, pushing Prigmal ahead of him on that flank, presumably to add more attacking threat. On the left side, he opted for the combination of Bruno Langa and Nico Melamed.
Okay.
Lazaro was positioned as the central striker, with Arribas playing more centrally, maybe behind or alongside him. Then Malero and Lopi were deeper in midfield, Edgar and Chumi formed the center-back pairing, and Fernando was in goal.
Making 5 changes for the most important match of the season, that's a significant shakeup. What did the sources' analysis say about this bold approach? Was it seen as brave or reckless?
Well, the analysis in our sources is quite nuanced, actually. It notes that while this approach clearly demonstrated Rubi's strong desire and intention for a comeback win,
Which you'd expect.
right, but it also inherently carried significant risk. The sources speculate that this tactical boldness, while it did lead to Almería taking that first half lead and dominating statistically.
So it worked initially.
It seemed to, yeah. But it might have also inadvertently created some tactical instability or spaces that Oviedo could eventually adapt to and exploit in the second half.
Ah, okay.
It really highlights that double-edged sword in knockout soccer. Radical tactical changes can provide the spark you need, but they can also disrupt cohesion or create vulnerabilities down the line.
Interesting. And despite the scale of the changes, Almería actually started the game looking sharp, showing that aggressive attacking desire the situation demanded.
They did. The sources describe Almería controlling the pace early on, creating chances with precise passing and intelligent movement. They were clearly trying to dictate the flow of the game and find that crucial opening goal.
But the rhythm was interrupted.
Yeah, the flow of the half was actually interrupted quite early by injuries.
Right.
There were pauses for treatment for players on both sides, Jaime Suane for Oviedo,
Okay.
and Bruno Longa and Kaiki for Almería. These interruptions, though maybe brief, they do affect the game's flow, and they also test the depth and readiness of both squad substitute benches right from the start.
True. But Almeria's pressure eventually paid off, and they got the breakthrough they so desperately needed, albeit from a penalty.
That's right. In the 23rd minute, Almería were awarded a penalty. It was due to a foul by Hemi Sawani inside the penalty box.
The player who later got subbed off at halftime.
The very same one. And Gonzalo Malero, stepping up with all that pressure on him, calmly converted the penalty in the 24th minute.
1-0 to Almería on the night. That goal was absolutely huge. Changed everything.
It was immense. It immediately tied the aggregate score at 2-2. Remember, Oviedo had won the first leg 2-1. So now, 1-0 to Almería in the second leg, everything was level again, aggregate 2-2. This dramatically changed the dynamic of the match and just ratcheted up the tension inside the Carlos Tartiere Stadium to an almost unbearable level, you'd imagine.
Yeah, you could feel the shift. It reflected Almeria's aggressive approach paying off, forcing that mistake that led to the penalty.
Exactly. And even after scoring, Almería didn't let up in that first half. They continued to look dangerous and created more clear opportunities to extend their lead.
We're talking about several shots that tested the Oviedo keeper.
Yes.
Okay.
Even before the penalty, Nico Melamed had a shot saved by the Oviedo keeper, a Escandel, in the 9th minute.
Okay.
But it was Dion Lopi who really tested Escandel repeatedly in that first half. The sources note Lopi had multiple shots saved by the Oviedo keeper in the 26th, 34th, 40th, and 45th minutes.
4 shots saved from Lopi alone.
Yeah, he was finding space, getting shots away, but Escandel was proving to be a really difficult barrier to break down.
So Oviedo's keeper was already earning his keep early on, playing a blinder by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. The performance of A. Escandel in that first half is highlighted in the sources as being crucial. He made several vital saves during Almeria's period of dominance, preventing them from building a larger lead that could have made the task much, much harder for Oviedo later on.
Did Almeria's keeper have much to do?
Well, Almeria's keeper, Fernando Martinez, he did make a save in the first half too, for example, from Quasi-Sibo in the 41st minute. But the overall picture of the first half was definitely Almeria's attacking pressure being met by Escandel's resistance.
And by halftime, the statistics really confirmed that story, didn't they? That first half dominance by Almeria.
They absolutely did. On the scoreboard, Almeria led 1-0. In terms of general stats, they clearly dominated possession and had significantly more shots.
Right.
But the most telling statistic from the first half, according to our sources, was the expected goals, or XG.
XG. Always interesting. What did it show?
Almeria's XG for the first half was 1.07, while Oviedo's was a mere 0.09.
Wow, 1.07 to 0.09. That's a huge difference.
Massive.
And what does that XG stat specifically tell us about that first half, based on the source's interpretation? How do they read that?
According to the sources, the significant difference in XG shows that Almeria created substantially more dangerous and higher quality scoring chances during that first 45 minutes.
Makes sense.
The fact that they scored 1 goal from an XG of just over 1 game suggests they got roughly what the metric predicted from the quality of their chances. Maybe even slightly underperformed considering the number of saves Escandel had to make.
Right.
It indicates their aggressive tactics and lineup changes did succeed in generating dangerous opportunities, even if they didn't convert all of them. The intent and the resulting threat from Almeria were undeniable based on those numbers.
So Almeria goes into halftime leading 1-0, aggregate tied 2-2. Stats looking good for them, creating chances. It felt like maybe Ruby's bold changes were actually having the desired effect.
It certainly looked that way at the break.
But then came the second half, and what the sources describe as the major turning point of the entire tie.
This is precisely where Oviedo's coach, Veljko Paunovic, made his move. And it's highlighted as being absolutely decisive.
What did he do?
At halftime, he made a crucial substitution, bringing on the veteran midfielder, Santi Cazorla.
The Santi Cazorla. Wow.
The one and only, replacing Hemi Sawani, the player who had conceded the penalty in the first half.
And the sources really emphasize the significance of this specific change, calling it the turning point.
Yes, the sources are very, very clear on this point. They explicitly identify Cazorla's introduction at the start of the second half as the pivotal moment that completely altered the trajectory of the match.
Not just a tactical tweak, then.
No, it was more than that. It was something that injected a new spirit and, crucially, quality into the team.
And why was Cazorla's presence so immediately and profoundly impactful? What did he bring?
Well, the sources state that Cazorla's introduction immediately injected new life, brought real creativity to the midfield, and significantly boosted the team's morale.
Which they probably needed after that first half.
Exactly. Oviedo had been under considerable pressure, tied on aggregate, struggling to create much of themselves in the first half. bringing on a player of Cazorla's pedigree, a beloved veteran with genuinely world-class skill and experience. It
Yeah.
was like a shot in the arm, according to the sources.
Yeah.
He provided a calming influence, but also that spark of inspiration exactly when the team needed it most.
A masterstroke from Paunovic.
Described exactly like that.
I
A decisive coaching move by Paunovic, one that also showcased the depth and quality available even on Oviedo's bench.
And Cazorla didn't just inject life. He produced something truly special almost straight away, didn't he?
It was absolutely remarkable. The kind of moment legends are made of, really. Just 3 minutes after stepping onto the field, the 49th minute, Santi Cazorla scored directly from a free kick.
No way. 3 minutes in.
3 minutes. The sources describe it as a precise shot. A perfectly executed free kick that just curled past the Almería keeper, Fernando Martinez.
What an incredible moment. A veteran, just brought on at halftime, scores a world-class free kick to completely change the game. Unbelievable.
Exactly. And the immediate consequence was enormous. The score was now 1-1 on the night.
Which put Oviedo back ahead on aggregate.
Back in the lead on aggregate, 3-2. The sources analyzed the significance of this goal, stating it dramatically boosted Oviedo's morale, completely shifted the momentum of the game away from Almería and towards Oviedo,
Totally flicked it.
and perfectly showcased Cazorla's individual skill, his composure, and the enduring quality he possesses. This moment, the sources highlight, demonstrates the decisive role that individual brilliance from key players can have in the most pivotal moments of these high-stakes soccer matches.
So a veteran substitute comes on, scores a stunning free kick within minutes, flips the aggregate lead back to his team, and completely changes the energy and momentum of the match. That's a coach's dream right there.
Yeah.
And a player's defining moment.
A true game changer, just as the sources describe him, absolutely. But the drama wasn't quite finished yet. There was still a moment later in the half involving VAR that could have swung things again.
Ah, yes. The potential second goal for Oviedo that got disallowed. I remember reading about that.
Precisely. In the 76th minute, Oviedo did score what they thought was their second goal. That would have given them a much more comfortable 2-goal cushion on aggregate, probably sealed it.
But VAR stepped in.
VAR intervened. The sources note that after a review, the goal was subsequently disallowed in the 77th minute.
Why? What was the reason?
Because Abdelrahim Al-Hassan Bancano was ruled offside in the build-up sequence leading to the goal.
Ah, offside in the buildup. So ultimately a correct decision based on the rules, ensuring fairness, even if harsh on Oviedo at the time.
Yes, the sources acknowledge it was a correct decision according to the laws of the game, but they also provide commentary on its psychological impact, which is interesting. They note it had a dual psychological impact. For Oviedo, it was obviously a temporary disappointment, understandably, taking away that feeling of having potentially sealed the win and easing the tension.
Yeah, it must have been gutting for a moment.
But crucially, for Almería, it offered a glimmer of hope, a lifeline, a reprieve. It encouraged them to push even harder in the remaining minutes, knowing the deficit was still just that 1 goal on aggregate.
They got that chance to reignite their belief and really fight back.
That's right. But the sources also note that despite this little psychological lift, Almería ultimately couldn't capitalize on it.
They couldn't find the goal.
No. The commentary suggests that while VAR ensures fairness and can definitely influence the psychological flow of a game, the final result still comes down to a team's ability to seize opportunities, maybe have a bit of luck, and maintain their composure and execution under intense pressure in those final moments.
And Almería just couldn't find that necessary breakthrough. And it wasn't for lack of trying, was it? Almería made a desperate late push after that VAR moment, throwing players forward.
They really did. Coach Ruby made further attacking substitutions, pulling out all the stops. This included bringing on Leo Baptistone.
Baptistone, wasn't he injured?
Yeah, he'd actually been injured in the first leg. The sources point to this substitution as demonstrating just how much the coach relied on him, even if not fully fit, for such a crucial final push in search of a goal.
Talk about putting all your chips on the table, risking an injured player.
Absolutely. And they came agonizingly close to finding that equalizing goal. In the 85th minute, one of the substitutes, Marko Milovanovic, had a header that struck the post.
The post! Oh no! So close to changing the scoreline and forcing extra time right near the end.
Just a matter of inches. The sources specifically note this moment as one of the crucial, unlucky breaks for Almería in the match.
Brutal.
And then they also appealed for another penalty in the 87th minute, but it wasn't given. That just added to their frustration.
So everything was going against them in those final minutes?
It seemed like it. The match became increasingly frenetic. It went into 6 minutes of added time.
6 minutes. Felt like an eternity, I bet.
You can imagine. The sources describe this intense physical battle as players on both sides, completely fatigued from the effort, continued to fight for every single ball, every inch of space.
Understandable.
There was even a late yellow card for Pozo in the 90+5 minute, which just reflects the sheer tension and desperation in those dying seconds. Almería kept pushing, but Oviedo's defense, having recovered their composure and tactical discipline in the second half, they held firm.
They saw it out.
They did.
Yeah.
And so, with Almería unable to find that elusive second goal, the final whistle blew.
And the score?
The match ended 1-1. This meant Real Oviedo advanced to the playoff final with a 3-2 aggregate victory over the two legs.
All thanks to that first leg win and Santi Cazorla's decisive equalizer in the second leg.
Exactly. Those were the key factors in the end.
Okay, we've walked through the dramatic timeline of events, from Almeria's strong start to Oviedo's comeback. Now, let's take a deeper dive into the tactical nuances, the key player performances that stood out in the sources, and what the full match statistics really reveal about this battle.
Sounds good. Looking at the tactical battle, let's first consider Oviedo under Paunovic. The sources describe their base formation typically as a 4-4-2.
Okay, classic 4-4-2.
Yeah. But it's adaptable. They can shift to other shapes like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-1-4-1 depending on the opponent or the game situation.
Flexible.
Very. And the core of Paunovic's philosophy, as described in the sources, seems centered around reigniting player passion and significantly raising the team's defensive intensity.
So it's not just about the shape on the board, but about attitude and work rate, energy.
Exactly. They implement a relentless high press, starting right from the forwards. The aim is to pressure opponents high up the pitch and force turnovers in dangerous areas.
Aggressive defensively.
Yes. And the sources stress the importance of defensive discipline and coordination. They emphasize that all 11 players are involved in creating a unified defensive unit, not just the back four.
A real team effort. What about on offense?
On the offensive side, their style is described as more direct. They focus on utilizing fluidity on the flanks, getting their fullbacks to overlap and deliver precise crosses into the box.
Getting the ball wide and whipping it in.
Pretty much. They also prioritize winning midfield battles, particularly out on the wings, to create opportunities to support their forwards.
Right.
And as we discussed, that second half change with Cazorla, the sources note specifically added crucial flexibility, creativity, and control to their tactical approach.
Yeah.
It allowed them to better manage the midfield in possession after being under that pressure in the first half.
Made a huge difference tactically as well as motivationally.
Absolutely.
And Almería under Rubi. We know he made those 5 changes. What were their tactical aims overall in this specific high-pressure match?
Well, Rubi is described in the sources as an experienced tactician, known for his skill in managing varied lineups, which, yeah, we certainly saw evidence of with those 5 initial changes.
Definitely.
The sources discuss his specific tactical aims for this game, primarily compensating for those significant absences of Suarez and Pubil.
Which we know was a big blow.
Huge.
Yeah.
And explicitly needing to increase the attacking threat compared to the first leg in order to overturn that aggregate deficit. He had to go for it.
So his approach was more attacking focused.
Yes. His approach in the match, especially during that dominant first half, was aiming for control of the game and trying to achieve penetration through structured possession and precise passing, trying to break down Oviedo's disciplined defensive block.
Okay, so how did these contrasting tactical approaches, Oviedo's intensity and directness versus Almeria's possession and penetration attempts, how did they play out in the final result, according to the sources?
The sources provide a really interesting analysis here. They note that while Almeria's tactics showed promise, particularly in that dominant first half and backed up by statistics like XG, they ultimately couldn't translate that tactical approach and statistical advantage into enough goals.
It created the chances, but didn't finish them.
Pretty much. They controlled possession, they got into good areas, but they only scored from that penalty. Oviedo, meanwhile, despite being put under significant pressure early on and conceding the penalty, showed immense resilience.
They bent, but didn't break.
Exactly. They maintained their defensive structure, they weathered the storm, and crucially, they capitalized on a single high-impact moment from a set piece, provided by a key substitute.
Cazorla's moment of magic.
That one moment. The sources point out that this match serves as a strong illustration that in soccer, especially in these high-stakes knockout ties, tactical plans and statistical dominance don't always guarantee victory.
Execution matters more sometimes.
Execution, resilience, individual brilliance, capitalizing on key moments. They're just as, if not sometimes more, important than the underlying stats or the initial game plan.
Speaking of individual brilliance, let's talk more about the key player performances that the sources identified as really making a difference. Cazorla obviously stands out.
Without a doubt, the sources highlight Santi Cazorla as the standout player of the match. His role was just transformative.
Coming off the bench at halftime.
Yeah, coming off the bench and scoring that decisive equalizer from a free kick just 3 minutes later. It was a moment of pure magic. His introduction, his immense experience, his technical skill, and the sheer quality of that goal completely changed the game's course.
He was the hero.
The sources call him the hero of the match and an embodiment of world-class play, stepping up in the absolute biggest moment.
It's a moment that will be remembered for a long time, especially given his history and connection to Oviedo.
Absolutely. And the sources even touch on that narrative layer, noting the potential for this promotion push to be a memorable farewell to his illustrious career if Oviedo manages to achieve their long-awaited return to LaLiga.
Adds a lovely touch to the story.
It does. It adds a poignant backdrop to his performance.
On Almeria's side, Gonzalo Malera scored their only goal from the penalty spot. What else did the sources say about him?
Yes, Malero successfully converted the penalty with composure under pressure, which isn't easy. The sources also mentioned his contributions in Almeria's midfield, helping with organization and making attacking runs, particularly during their strong first half. He was a key figure in their initial dominance.
Okay. And we've mentioned the goalkeepers multiple times already, Escandel especially. How did the sources rate their overall performance across the full 90 minutes? Were they both key?
Both keepers played very significant roles in keeping the scoreline as tight as it was. Oviedo's A. Escandel is described as being particularly heroic.
Heroic. Strong word.
Yeah. He made multiple crucial saves, especially during Almeria's initial onslaught in the first half. The sources credit him with laying the foundation for the comeback by preventing Almeria from building a commanding lead when they were really on top.
Wow. Any stats to back that up?
They provide a stat that underscores his performance. He faced an expected goals on target, XGOT, of 1.89, but only conceded that one penalty goal.
Okay. Explain XGOT again briefly. So, based on the quality of the shots Almeria put on target, it was expected that they should have scored nearly 2 goals, but he only let in the 1.
That's exactly what that XGOT stat suggests, according to the source, that his saving ability on the night was significantly above the statistical expectation based on the quality and placement of the shots he faced. He made a total of 5 saves in the match.
Impressive. What about Almeria's keeper, Fernando?
Almeria's keeper, Fernando Martinez, also made several saves, 4 in total, including important stops in the 41st minute from Cibo and the 57th minute from Venus after Cazorla's goal.
So he was busy too.
Yeah. So while he conceded the crucial free kick, he wasn't passive either and kept his team in the game at various points. It was a real goalkeeper battle in many ways.
Any other notable players mentioned in the sources whose contributions, big or small, were highlighted? Anyone else catch the eye?
Yes, several others got to mention. For Almeria, Nico Melamed was noted as being active offensively. Although frustratingly for them, he hit the framework, didn't he?
Right. Hit the woodwork.
Yeah. Dianolopi, as we mentioned, had those multiple shots saved by Escandel, highlighting his persistent effort to find the goal. He kept trying.
And for Oviedo?
On Oviedo's side, defenders Dani Calvo and Alessani Boncano received yellow cards, which indicates the intensity and physicality of their defensive efforts to thwart Almeria's attack, especially late on.
Putting their bodies on the line.
Seemed like it.
Yeah.
Alamo, the team's top scorer, was noted for being active in both leading the line in attack and contributing to the team's high press defensively. A lot of work from him.
And beyond Cazorla, were there other substitutes who made a notable impact, either positive or negative, according to the sources?
Well, Cazorla was certainly the game changer, no question. But the sources mention others, too. For Oviedo, Venus came on and had shots on target, adding to their attacking threat in the second half.
Okay.
De La Hoz and Luengo were brought on as more defensive changes later in the game, likely to help preserve the lead. And Portillo was an attacking option introduced as well.
What about Almeria's subs?
For Almeria, besides Baptistan returning from injury and Mel Ivanovic hitting the post, Santel's also came on earlier, and Fettel was a late change.
Right.
But the sources explicitly underscore how Oviedo's depth, particularly the sheer quality and immediate impact of Cazorla, was decisive in turning the game around.
While Almeria's subs couldn't quite find that goal.
Exactly. In contrast, Almeria's late attacking substitutions, while they did create chances and hit the woodwork, They just couldn't force that crucial second goal despite all the pressure they applied.
All right, let's really dig into the full match data and statistics now. We touched on the first half XG, but the sources provide a comprehensive breakdown for the entire 90 minutes. What does the full statistical picture tell us when we combine all these numbers?
Okay, looking at the overall stats, they definitely confirm Almeria's dominance in terms of possession and territorial advantage across the entire match.
What was the possession split?
They held 61% possession compared to Oviedo's 39%. The sources interpret this as Almeria successfully controlling the ball for larger periods, aiming to dictate the tempo and flow of the game.
More time on the ball, but as we know, not more goals in the end. That old story.
Precisely. And digging into the shots data provides even more detail on that. Almeria had significantly more total shots.
How many more?
15 versus 9 for Oviedo. More shots on target too, 6 versus 5. More shots off target, 6 versus 3. And importantly, more shots taken from inside the penalty box, 9 versus 5.
So they were getting into better shooting positions more often.
Yes, this collection of stats indicates that Almeria were much more effective at penetrating Oviedo's defense and getting into dangerous positions to take shots, both inside and outside the box.
And the expected goals for the full match? Did that reflect Almeria's shot dominance?
It did. For the full time, Almeria's XG was 1.34, while Oviedo's was only 0.49.
Still a big gap.
Yeah. The sources interpret this to mean that across the entire match, Almeria consistently created higher quality scoring chances than Oviedo, according to this statistical model.
So a higher XG across the match, but only one goal scored, and that was from a penalty. That really highlights the execution gap we discussed earlier, doesn't it?
It really does. And the expected goals on target, the XGOT, reinforces this even more.
What are the XBOT figures?
Almeria's XGOT was 1.89, while Oviedo's was 1.16.
So significantly higher for Almeria again.
Yes. And as the sources explain, XGOT specifically measures the quality of shots on target, essentially, how likely those specific shots that actually hit the target were to result in a goal based on placement and power, etc. Almeria's notably higher XGOT suggests that the shots they managed to get on target were, on average, of a higher quality or placed in areas more difficult for the keeper.
But Escandel saved most of them.
Exactly. As we saw with Escandel's performance, his saves prevented that higher XGOT from translating into more goals. It reinforces the idea that statistics reflect chance creation, but goalkeeper performance and finishing execution are crucial separate factors.
And let's not forget, those times Almeria hit the frame of the goal, that's not captured in XG or XGOT, is it?
No, it's not, but it's a crucial point the sources make. Almeria hit the post or crossbar twice, Melamed in the first half, Milovanovic in the second, while Oviedo didn't hit the woodwork at all.
Huge moments of bad luck.
Absolutely. The sources explicitly note these moments as significant instances of bad luck for Almeria, suggesting that had one or both of those shots gone just inches the other way, it would have dramatically altered the outcome. It highlights how fine the margins are in these games.
Any other interesting points from the wealth of stats provided? Passing, fouls.
Yeah, passing accuracy aligns with possession. Almeria was higher at 90% completion. That's 432 successful passes out of 481 attempts, compared to Oviedo's 86%, 271 out of 316.
Confirms their tidiness on the ball.
Exactly. Confirms Almeria's higher precision in ball circulation, enabling their possession dominance. Fouls and cards were relatively balanced. Both teams committed 9 fouls. Almeria got 2 yellow cards. Oviedo got 2 yellows.
So intense, but not dirty.
Indicates an intense match, but one that stayed largely within the rules, yeah. Set-piece stats show similar numbers for corners, Almeria 5, Oviedo 4, and free kicks awarded. Both teams got 9.
Right.
But Oviedo's decisive goal coming from a free kick just underscores the source's point about the critical importance of set pieces in tight, evenly matched games where open play goals are proving difficult to come by.
One moment of quality from a dead ball situation
It can make all the difference.
What about some of those other key metrics the sources provide, like big chances or touches in the box?
Right. Almeria had the only clear big chance created in the match, 1 versus 0, according to the source's definition of that term.
Interesting.
They also had significantly more touches in the opposition's penalty box, 29 versus 15 for Oviedo.
Again, showing they got into dangerous areas more.
Yes. These metrics collectively reinforce the picture painted by the possession and shot stats. Almeria were much more successful at getting into dangerous areas close to Oviedo's goal and creating high-quality scoring opportunities.
Can it convert?
But Oviedo's resolute defense, combined with their keeper's performance, managed to limit Almeria to just that one penalty goal, despite this statistical advantage in chance creation and dangerous territory penetration.
Any other stats? Errors? Saves? Offsides.
Almería had 0 errors leading directly to a shot, while Oviedo had 1 which was likely the penalty incident.
Okay.
Again, highlighting Almeria's perhaps cleaner defensive game, but Oviedo's resilience after making a mistake. Goalie saves, as noted, saw Escandel make 1 more stop, 5 versus 4. Offsides were relatively similar, Oviedo 5, Almería 4.
It's fascinating how the numbers point so strongly towards Almería creating more and better chances, getting into better positions, hitting the woodwork. Yet the final score didn't reflect that statistical picture at all.
It really highlights the human element, doesn't it? Goalkeeper heroics, maybe some wasteful finishing, disciplined defensive blocks, individual brilliance, maybe just luck. All those factors that transcend the pure statistics deciding the final outcome of a high-stakes game.
The sources also included some non-pitch data, which offers another interesting perspective: market value and fan base size.
Yes, and this is quite striking. The comparison of team market value is notable. Oviedo's squad value was estimated at around 31.4 million. Almeria's was significantly higher at 57.5 million.
Big difference, nearly double.
Yeah. And the sources explicitly used this comparison to point out that Almeria's higher squad value, representing a presumably higher investment in playing talent on paper, did not guarantee success in this crucial match.
Money doesn't always buy wins.
Exactly. It serves as a reminder, according to the sources, that success in soccer, particularly in competitive leagues and knockout formats, isn't solely determined by the market value of the players on the pitch. Other factors clearly play a huge role.
And the fan bases?
Oviedo also boasts a much larger fan base, with over 18,000 registered members compared to Almeria's 9,000. That highlights the passion and scale of support behind the home side, which maybe played a part too.
So despite having a statistically more dominant performance in chance creation and a higher valued squad on paper, Almería couldn't overcome Oviedo's resilience, their tactical adaptation in the second half, and that one decisive moment of brilliance.
That is precisely the conclusion the sources draw when you combine the match events, the tactical analysis, and all the statistics. It's a complex picture.
Let's hear from the coaches now. What did Veljko Paunovic have to say after guiding Oviedo to the final? He must have been thrilled.
Paunovic was understandably feeling confident and very proud after the match. The sources report him claiming that Oviedo is currently unstoppable.
Strong words.
Yeah, emphasizing that impressive 12-game unbeaten streak they had built leading into this critical game. He reserved specific, glowing praise for Santi Cazorla,
As you'd expect.
stating unequivocally that Cazorla's exquisite skill had resurrected the team in that pivotal moment in the second half.
Resurrected, wow.
Yeah. Paunovic expressed strong confidence in the team's current spirit and their tactical approach, feeling they are now truly ready to fight for honors in the final.
His comments clearly reflect the momentum they've built and his belief in the team's current capabilities under his leadership. You can hear the confidence.
Absolutely. And his comments directly connect back to that crucial halftime decision to bring on Cazorla, which he clearly views as having paid off immensely, a vindication for him.
Now, Almería coach Ruby's post-match comments. The sources indicate there was a controversial element in what he said. What was that about?
Yes, Ruby expressed deep frustration, sadness, and disappointment at his team failing to achieve their stated goal of promotion, which is understandable. He attributed the loss, at least in part, to the significant absence of those key players, Luis Suarez and Mark Pubil.
Right, the national team call-ups.
Exactly. And the sources note that Suarez had been incredibly prolific for Almería this season, scoring 27 league goals and 4 Kings Cup goals. So his absence was indeed a massive blow to their attacking options.
Undeniably.
Ruby then made a controversial claim, as reported by the sources. He stated that the playoff scheduling felt manipulated because these national team call-ups disproportionately affected his team by taking away 2 such vital players for the crucial playoff fixtures.
So he felt the timing of the playoffs, coinciding with international breaks, created an unfair playing field specifically for Almería. That's a strong accusation.
That is how the sources present his claim. They note that this reflects his deep frustration and hints at potential systemic issues within the scheduling of these critical matches relative to FIFA dates.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're reporting his statement as presented in the sources.
Correct. We're not endorsing or validating the claim ourselves, just relaying what the sources attribute to him. It was clearly a major point of contention for him after the loss.
Got it. Understood. What else did Ruby say beyond that controversial point?
Well, he did acknowledge that his team showed personality in the match and managed to create numerous chances, especially in that dominant first half.
Which the stats back up.
Right. However, he felt they lacked luck on the night, referencing moments like hitting the woodwork, and ultimately conceded 3 key goals across the 2 legs, the 2 of the first leg and Cazorla's free kick here, which proved decisive.
Okay.
He also openly confessed that the team's consistent poor away form in the second half of the regular season directly led to them missing out on automatic promotion in the first place.
So he acknowledged that link himself.
Yes, implicitly connecting that season-long weakness to their eventual playoff failure. He basically said the seeds of this playoff loss were sown much earlier in the season due to their inconsistency away from home.
Interesting admission. Did he defend his tactics, the 5 changes?
Yes, he did. He defended his initial decision to make 5 lineup changes for the match, explaining it was an attempt to compensate for the absences and boost the attack. He also pointed out that he threw on all available attacking players late in the second half in a final desperate push.
Right.
The sources, as noted earlier, kind of contrast this scattergun approach late on with Paunovic's single masterstroke substitution of Cazorla, highlighting how the impact of one well-timed change can sometimes outweigh multiple planned tactical adjustments or later attacking pushes.
Let's quickly summarize the season trajectories for both clubs then, based on all the information in the sources. How did it end up for them?
Okay, for Real Oviedo, it's been a story of significant turnaround and really positive upward momentum. They finished 3rd in the regular season with 75 points and have now reached the playoff final.
Big success for them so far.
Huge. As Paunovic articulated, they underwent a significant transformation under his leadership, going from a team attempting struggling to even make the playoffs to one that built an unstoppable, unbeaten run right when it mattered most.
And Almería?
For Almería, it was a season with a very different narrative. First high, then low, as one source neatly put it. They finished 6th with 69 points, failed to achieve their primary goal of direct promotion, and were eliminated here in the playoffs.
So another season in Segunda for them.
Exactly. They will remain in the Segunda division for another season. Their strong start, where they even led the table, was ultimately undone by that persistent poor away form in the crucial latter stages of the campaign.
And what does this result mean for the overall landscape of LaLiga next season? Who does Oviedo play in the final?
This result confirms that Real Oviedo will now advance to the playoff final. Their opponent will be Mirandes.
The Mirandes, how did they get there?
They won the other semifinal pretty convincingly against Racing Santander. They beat them 4-1 in the second leg for a commanding 7-4 aggregate victory overall.
Wow, 7-4 aggregate. High scoring.
Very. So the sources note that this sets up a final between Oviedo and Mirandes, and importantly, it guarantees that La Liga will have a new face next season, whichever of these 2 clubs ultimately wins promotion.
That's exciting. Creates significant anticipation and buzz among fans across Spanish soccer.
Absolutely. A fresh team joining the top flight is always interesting.
Moving towards wrapping up then, let's look at the fan reaction and the future outlook for both clubs based on the sources. How did the supporters react immediately after this emotionally charged match? Must have been night and day.
Oh, the contrast in fan emotion, according to the sources, was immense and palpable. Completely night and day. Oviedo fans were described as being extremely enthusiastic. There were scenes of huge cheers as the team bus arrived before the game, wild celebrations with the players on the pitch after the match. The description used was that the entire Carlos Tartiere Stadium bathed in joy.
Lovely image.
Yeah, they're now filled with renewed faith and belief that their long-held dream of reaching La Liga is finally within reach. Just pure elation.
You can almost feel that wave of emotion from the description. And Almería fans?
In stark contrast, Almería fans were left with deep sadness and anger following the elimination. Their season goal missed, ending in the most disappointing way possible in a knockout game. Utter dejection.
Social media must have been exploding after a match like that, reflecting both sides.
Oh, definitely. The sources mentioned that celebrating Oviedo's hard-fought win, and of course Santi Cazorla's incredible, decisive free kick goal, were trending topics across social media platforms.
Understandably.
Discussions about which of the 2 finalists, Oviedo or Mirandes, would be the new face in La Liga next season also generated significant buzz.
And Ruby's controversial comment about the playoffs being manipulated, did that get traction?
Yes. His claim also sparked considerable debate and discussion online and elsewhere. It highlighted those potential systemic issues in how these crucial games are scheduled relative to international commitments, whether you agree with his assessment or not. It got people talking.
Were there any other special moments or underlying narratives highlighted by the sources in the aftermath? Anything else that added to the story?
The sources reiterate that narrative surrounding Cazorla's magic on the night, and the compelling possibility that achieving promotion could serve as a fairy tale, memorable farewell to his distinguished career.
That adds such a layer of human interest and narrative depth to the event, doesn't it?
It really does. The overall festive atmosphere at the Carlos Tarquier, once the final whistle blew and Oviedo's advancement was confirmed, was also noted as a special part of the night's story. Pure celebration.
Looking ahead now, what's the immediate future for Real Oviedo and what challenges face Almería as they look towards next season?
For Real Oviedo, their immediate future is entirely focused on intense preparation for that playoff final against Mirandes. Two more huge games.
The biggest yet.
Absolutely. Their objective is clear and singular. Maintain the incredible momentum they've built under Paunovic, continue to execute their tactical plan with discipline, and achieve that long-awaited long-term dream of returning to LaLiga after so many years away.
Everything rides on that final series for them.
It really does. For Almeria, the outlook is obviously different. They are now facing another season in the Segunda Division.
Tough.
Yeah. The sources indicate they need to seriously re-examine shortcomings from this past season, particularly addressing that persistent poor away form that plagued them and ultimately cost them automatic promotion and contributed to this playoff exit.
They need to fix that road problem.
Definitely. They also need to look at what appears to be an over-reliance on key players like Suarez and Pubil, whose absences proved so costly in this specific match.
Need better depth or contingency plans?
Something like that. Coach Ruby and the club will need to find solutions to better cope with potential future absences and likely look to reinforce the squad in the transfer market this summer.
And the goal next year?
Their main goal for next season will almost certainly be targeting direct promotion to avoid the unpredictability and heartache of the playoffs altogether.
A lot of work ahead for Almería then, to learn from this season's disappointment and bounce back stronger.
Indeed. They have to analyze what went wrong, particularly how a season that started with so much promise and saw them leading the table ended in playoff failure and another year stuck in the second tier.
So this deep dive has taken us through the incredible high-stakes drama of this playoff semifinal second leg. We saw Almería come out strong, implementing a bold tactical plan, generating statistical dominance, taking the lead.
Then, Real Oviedo's remarkable turnaround in the second half, ignited by that decisive halftime substitution and a moment of pure individual brilliance from a veteran legend, leading to that crucial set-piece equalizer.
We witnessed the intense tension, the near misses like hitting the post, the VAR controversy that added another layer, and the sheer physical battle in those final desperate minutes.
We've unpacked the contrasting tactical approaches, highlighted the key individual performances that made a difference from the heroic goalkeeper saves to Cazorla's magic, interpreted the wealth of statistics like XG and XGOT to understand the complex picture they painted,
And heard from the coaches about their perspectives, their frustrations, and their confidence levels. We've also connected the outcome of the single match back to the season-long trends and trajectories of both clubs.
It's a really compelling story filled with tactical chess, player heroics, statistical nuances, and the immense psychological pressure of knockout soccer.
It really does show how complex and unpredictable the game can be at the highest levels, especially when everything is truly on the line like this.
Absolutely. It's rarely straightforward.
And here's a provocative thought for you to consider based on everything we've pulled from the sources today. Given Almeria's notably higher squad market value compared to Oviedo's, and considering their statistically superior chance creation as evidenced by metrics like XG and XGOT in this specific match, what factors beyond just player value and the quantity or quality of chances created truly decide these incredibly high-stakes knockout games?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Is it the momentum built over the preceding weeks? Is it the mentality and composure of the players under immense pressure? Is it a single unpredictable moment of individual brilliance from a veteran player like Cazorla? Or perhaps a coach's decisive, game-changing tactical move made at precisely the right time?
Or maybe a combination of all of those.
Maybe. Think about how all these different, often intangible elements seem to converge in this specific match to produce the final result, a result that maybe defied the expectations that raw statistics or market value alone might suggest. What really wins these games?